Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so today's been pretty good. Watched a lot of football. Watched the Chargers and Vikings. That kind of thing. Saw the score of the Miami game. Scored 70-20 against Denver. So that was crazy, given the fact that Colorado got blown out yesterday. So condolences to all my Colorado fans and football. That is probably the worst weekend you probably ever had. But yeah, man, I just got off the phone with my family. Of course, we do the Bible study every Sunday, and I think this was one of our favorite messages. I think everybody was almost unanimous. This was one of our favorite messages that we've had to get together. And essentially, what came to us is just excuse me. It was 2 Corinthians 7, I believe it was, and what we took from it was just basically sometimes we can say the wrong things, or in friendships and relationships maybe interpret things the wrong way, or say words that might touch somebody in a negative way. I've mentioned this a couple times with my friend Bronze back in, not as of late, but well before she got married. Sometimes I would say certain things that would be too harsh for her, but given how other people react to certain things that I did, I thought it was within bounds, you know what I mean? But for whatever reason, I had to learn that wasn't the case with her, that her boundaries were much more sensitive in regards to certain topics and certain things. And as I grew to understand how to respect that better, it made for us having a better friendship. And it just taught me, like, sometimes you can say certain jokes with certain people and they'll get you. Other times people come from a different place and they won't know you're joking or anything like that. Also, just in that same vein, a lot of times I talk about my friend Kay and how distant she is, and how distant I ultimately find myself being from certain people, especially when I'm not doing too well, and just how to more or less not allow your first mind to lead you into circumstances where you believe something is what it's not. You guys see me go through this process with her on numerous occasions where I would convince myself of why she's away, and only to find out that her truth was nothing like what my mind was telling me. I mean, if you put forth prayer in regards to those conversations or those interactions or lack thereof, the Spirit tends to allow you to look at it the right way, and you won't find yourself anticipating something being about you, or anticipating someone doing something that they're just simply not doing, or whatever the case may be. And you pray about it and allow that energy to ultimately guide you in the direction that brings about you being a solution. My uncle Merle was on the line. He was saying, with his significant other, his wife, sometimes he ends up finding himself saying the wrong thing, and even though she'll quickly get over it, he'll think about it and kind of not feel good about what he said. And the key to it all is to not be the problem. You know what I mean? When you're saying certain things, phrasing things a certain way, try to more or less allow the Lord to enter your heart through prayer, so that you don't find yourself being a problem in any way with what you say or how you say it. My mom used to always say, it's not what you say, but how you say it. But even so, sometimes what you say in those words specifically, even if you say it in the right way, will touch somebody the wrong way, depending on what you're talking about, depending on, how they perceive your intentions. And just the same to be on the other end of that, when someone's saying something to you and maybe you didn't get the right way, to make sure that you're receiving it in a way that allows you to perceive it properly, instead of just going to your first mind to being offended, or going to your first mind to thinking that they're being critical, when in actuality maybe there might be a different way to perceive what it is that's coming your way from them. So it was one of my favorite messages, because I've of course been this way, distant with people, not really wanting to answer the phone, not really wanting to reach out. And now I find myself on the other end of that, where maybe I'll make a phone call, won't get an answer. Now maybe I want to talk and there's no, she's not answering, that kind of thing. So it's like, it's more relevant than ever to not only humble myself in the presence of understanding that I've done this to others, but also humble myself to know that my mind is going to always tell me something that it's not. But if I pray about it, the Lord will allow me to understand what I need to understand in the moment. And now I'm starting to realize, as I made a video last night, I'm starting to really perceive how best to appreciate her, even though she's distant in this way, to try to help with what it is she's already said about being distant, by praying about those things so that she can heal naturally rather than trying to go outside of her way. No different than I refused to when I was going through something and didn't want to speak as well. I needed people to kind of understand that and come back around during this time when I'm a bit more mature, a bit more open, and welcome me in. It's the same thing in regards to a Bible study. When my mother was alive, she did the Bible study that I've already mentioned with my family, and she would often try to get me involved. I might have done it once or twice, but I wasn't open to it at all. And now, long after she's passed, they're allowing me to come back in to the fold consistently and have welcomed me in with open arms. Maybe they otherwise would be like, you know what? Nah, Brandon, you're not welcome here, because when we wanted you to be a part of it back then, you never wanted to, but they never did that. They never even put that out there in regards to myself. So that's also a part of it, is to allow people to grow on their own, and sometimes not get so frustrated with people when they're not doing what you want them to do on your time. Give them a couple years, give them a couple weeks, or whatever the situation would be. Give them some time, and they'll come around and end up doing more in that vein than ever you would have thought, or more in that vein than ever they would have if they would have forced themselves to do it on your time. So that's what the Lord told me in regards to my friend Kay. It's like, even though she's distant right now, she's in a different place, trust that she's going to do more in the end. Before it's over with, she's going to give you so much more of herself than you're getting right now, for the fact that you were patient with her now. And so as I tell you guys, with my boy T, he dealt with that with me. There were times where I disappear for 6 months, a year, and not talk, not reach out after having a whole summer where I hung out with my friend, you know what I mean? A whole 2 summers, and then just overnight, just disappear. And it's like watching him be patient with me in that way helped me understand that there's a way to be patient with Kay in that way. There's a way to be patient with myself in regards to how to do that, how to perceive myself in the fullness of that behavior. That I can still be forgiven for my absence, or that I can still be understood eventually, or that I can even grow to become someone who would then reach out or answer the phone or call more and things of that nature. So that's what the power of prayer can do. It'll help you align with the rhythm of others, and to shut off that negative aspect of what your mind would otherwise do, and trying to fill in the blanks for what it is that ultimately you do not know. And that's why I always tell people to go to the Spirit for that. I'm fortunate enough to be able to have that rhythm with the Spirit. I pray enough to where it's easy for me to step into that and say, Lord, am I looking at things correctly? And He'll allow me to understand what it is that I'm seeing. As I've been illustrating to you guys for the last month and a half, it's that connection with God that's ultimately led me in the right direction in these most difficult times that I'm going through. So that's really what it is. Today I was a bit irritated, and it wasn't really about anything other than the fact that and you guys are gonna laugh, but I wasn't enjoying the football game that I was watching, and I was trying to work out in that game, and it was just becoming something that was irritable to me. And then I ended up having like this spider bite on the back of my neck that came into like a big bump on the back of my neck, and so that was irritating me as well. So it just became little things that ultimately made me irritable, when in reality I was actually waking up in a good mood. I slept pretty well. This room has been kind to me ever since I told you guys last night about that whole spiritual experience. I've had a good night. I drafted my basketball teams. I told you guys I'm a habitual basketball drafter, but it was one of those situations where it's like nothing was really wrong. Nobody had done anything. It was just little things that were happening that ultimately came together to make me irritable. You know what I mean? And so those are the type of things you got to shake off. You got to understand where the enemy can try to ruin your energy. I also, on top of that, it was somebody who had said something on IG that I didn't appreciate. He addressed me in a certain way, and that was also another nail in the coffin, so to speak, in regards to ruining my energy. Didn't talk to nobody that would piss me off. Didn't have anything really go wrong. My circumstances are tough, but from within those circumstances, I was having a good morning. But those little bitty gnats of life, as my mother used to call them, can come together to basically make you an irritable person. And all of a sudden you find yourself fussing, and your face starts to scrunch up and things of that nature. And it was the spirit of prayer that ultimately gave me an opportunity to reset. After I finished my workout, the football game I was watching ended up becoming a bit more close, and it started being fun more or less at the end. and little stuff like that. You know, the towel that I've been telling y'all about, you know, taking a shower and then having it kind of leave flakes all over my face. Just little stuff like that. It's not even a problem. And if only one of those things would have happened, I wouldn't have been upset at all. But since it was so many of those little things happening, it just made for me being irritable this morning. But you know, it takes prayer to ultimately snap you out of that and ultimately help you understand that that ain't nothing but the enemy trying to attack you so that you don't have the right energy upon whatever it is that's coming up, which was the Bible study. By the time Bible study came around, I was feeling great. You know what I mean? I did my little workout, showered again, stretched, all that stuff, went to sleep, woke up, and I feel great right now, more or less. And so even though my phone is a little blurry, I think everything is just fine. And that's ultimately what it's supposed to be about. So we just got to let the Spirit into our minds and our hearts. Let us understand how to perceive whatever it is that we're dealing with. Let that prayer and that devotion to God and that trust in God help you perceive whatever it is that's going on in your life the right way, so that you don't let your natural mind take on all of those little gnats of life, or those circumstances where you'll need to fill in the blanks with others, and allow yourself to find your peace in the circumstances that may be uncomfortable or irritable, or leave you wanting more from somebody than you're getting. Whatever the case may be, it can all come together to ultimately say, pray about it before you allow yourself to run with the thought. That's essentially what I take from that. So yeah, that's my thought for the day. I didn't really feel like making too much content today for some reason. I haven't done any art, ain't did no playlist. All I've really been kind of focusing on in regards to today was working out. Yesterday I did my squat regimen. Today I did my squat regimen. This is the first time since I've been in this hotel that I did 2 of those workouts in a row. So I found myself realizing that I have more space in this room than I did in the other room, because I can move the bed to the side, got the fan right next to me, got the fridge right next to that, and there's space to stretch, space to do my workouts, and ultimately the TV is right in front of it. So this has actually turned out to be a much better room for what it is that I ultimately do in regards to keeping my body where I want it to be physically. So, you know, just dealing, man. I want to do more. I ultimately want to find myself doing the same things that I do when there's urgency. You know, when this past Friday, was it Thursday or Wednesday? Yeah, I'd say Wednesday it was, because Thursday was the day I needed to hurry up and ultimately reset the contract. But you know, Wednesday I found myself cramming everything that I needed to do all these last 3 weeks, looking up apartments, calling all these different people to try to find a place for myself. And it just seems like that urgency within me is only there when I absolutely need it to be there, rather than when I can, rather than putting myself in a position to anticipate things further down the line and jump to it. So I think that's part of my irritation as well. It's just within myself. It's like, why can't I manifest that urgency, even though it is very much urgent just the same? It seems like I don't allow myself to really put in that effort until I absolutely have run out of time. And so I think that was an underlining thing that was irritating me as well. It's just understanding the conditioning of my mind and the struggles that I have with that mind, trying to find my own place and ultimately being patient with what it is that needs to happen, which is waiting on my GR to confirm that I can say that I have income and things of that nature. So all of these different things can come together to make you really frustrated. Plus, it's kind of hot in this room. It seems like it's getting hotter by the second right now. And you just understand that you're being attacked, more or less. It's not like a physical attack, but your spirit is taking on all these little gnats of life that can ultimately come together to make you an unhappy human being. But just the same, in praying and allowing yourself to reset, so to speak, and allowing yourself to do things that bring about health in your life, working out, stretching, and things of that nature, eating properly, those things can ultimately come together to make it so that it will allow you to reset that circumstance. Also, I'll tell you what I told my friend Kay this morning, and I've said this on the camera, I'm sure, before, but how you eat, it'll determine a lot of that too. If you're eating bad foods, greasy foods, sugary foods, a lot of the stuff that we ultimately have in our culture in America, particularly breads, heavy food, stuff like that, pork, anything that's really bad for the heart, bad for the body, it's going to translate to how you feel about yourself physically. It's going to translate to how well you think, how well you breathe, and things of that nature. So, to step away from that culture. I think that's really what was irritating me as well. I'm watching a football game, except I'm watching the same old ads over and over again. And I've been someone who hasn't had a TV in about 2 or 3 years. So the only ads I really watch is on YouTube. So when watching TV, I found myself irritated with watching so many ads for so much that I didn't care for. T-Mobile ads. I had my issues with T-Mobile, so I ain't trying to see no ads for them. Food that just didn't have nothing healthy attached to it, bread and pickles and meat, and that's it. It's like, where is the thing that's going to keep me healthy? Where's the thing that's going to feed my mind and get me closer to ultimately being slim the way I want to be, and what's going to cater to my workout? It's just a lot of the stuff that is given to us in the culture that I'm in. It's still normal for us to take on things that really are not good for us, and I just want to expedite the process of getting all of that out of our lives, and I just don't see a path to that. So that irritates me. It's like, why are we still confused about what we should want versus what we shouldn't? Some of this stuff is meant to kill us and have us out of here by 70. You know what I mean? It's food. It's like culture is we're attached to, and we don't know nothing else. It's because we allow them to warp our minds with this ad culture. And it's like, well, you need to have ads because ads put the funding into to what it is that we watch. It's like, yeah, but that I think is a flawed system that we ultimately coerce ourselves into not knowing that we don't have to think this way. We don't have to eat this way. We don't have to patronize stuff that doesn't cater to our spirits in a proper light. Why isn't what I'm talking about now what we're seeing on our ads? Why isn't things that, salad and fruit and vegetable things that they ultimately pour all their money into the ads in regards to? Things that are going to help your spirit and your mind. Why are we still in primitive times is essentially what I feel in my heart. It's like I'm looking at the past and people are doing barbaric stuff and they're okay with it. No, this is what it looks like to me. It's like, I'm in the future in regards to what we should be doing culture-wise. Some of the food that we eat, the way that things are put into our minds, the culture of misdirection, how people ultimately pretend to be who they're not in these IG comments, as I often talk about, trying to mold the idea of who's around you and things of that nature, getting a taste of that and then having somebody react to me when I call it out. That's what ultimately what it was a gnat also when I told y'all somebody had reacted to me in a way I didn't appreciate. It was one of those trolls got back at me for pointing out whatever it was, what random thing I may have pointed out. But it's just the same misunderstanding that this is what evil is about. It's about people keeping people in confusion, and ultimately when you point it out, it will try to attack you. And that's just one way it does so. And many other different ways that evil will attack you as well. But you have to just the same keep your prayer right, keep your spirit right, so you can see through these cultures and through these attacks that ultimately aren't meant for your betterment, but are meant to ultimately coerce you into spaces that are just no good for you and ultimately keep you pushing forward those same things to others. And so that's ultimately what I'm about, man. I want to usher us into a new world where it's normal to want good things for yourself. It's not normal to eat stuff that only tastes good, but is actually meant to kill you. It's not normal to smoke cigarettes and that stuff, it ain't meant to do nothing but kill you. It's not, these things. That's ultimately what I'm ultimately about. It's the betterment of human life and the betterment of understanding that we can think for ourselves. We don't have to be warped into evil culture just by way of the embedded, repeated rhythm of what is provided. And a lot of people reject that because they're not ready to step out of that. They're coerced into those cultures and they don't know to not want those cultures, but will hate the results of what come with it just the same. They don't want to die of a heart attack, but they surely want to keep eating the bad foods. And they get mad at anybody who tells them that they should not. You know what I mean? And that type of confusion is the evil that I was speaking of last night, keeping the wool over our eyes or what have you in regards to wanting things that are no good for us. And ultimately, that's how evil works all the time, in confusion, covering your eyes, all three of them, so to speak, and putting you in a position to ultimately want what's not right for you. So that's really what it's about, man. I hope that I was able to reach somebody with this message, and continue to work on myself in regards to some of these cultures. Because I was raised in them. But it's just the same. I know that it's confusion and devilishness that is meant to help us to our doom. You know what I mean? So that's really what it's about. It's just coercing ourselves away from that, pulling that wool out from in front of our eyes, not allowing the confusion of these different gnats of life course us into bad moods that ultimately make us so that we don't choose to go to God about the things that are ultimately in our lives, but more so to our first mind, and then from there let the devil work that way to pull us away from the people we love, to coerce us toward people that don't love us, and ultimately into circumstances that are going to torture us, more or less. So that's pretty much what I have to say. My name is BDF 44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.